What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? I'm the Godless Engineer, and I'm here tonight with Paulogia. Hi there, Paul. Is it Paulogia? Is it Paulogia? Like, how do you pronounce that shit?
I'm just Paulo Guy.
Paulo Guy.
Paulo Gaia.
Paulo Gaia. Shit.
Yeah.
All right.
So, I liked your ballroom-worthy dance you had to go on there. That was great.
Yeah, I know, right? All right, so what's up, heathens? So I'm here with Paul tonight, and we are here to take your calls. If you would like to call in and challenge us on God or evolution, you know, Paul's probably a bit more adept at evolution than I am, just because I've been doing a lot of political stuff here lately. But you know, anything along those lines, feel free to call in. We would love to talk to you. The number is 720-619-2288, or there is a web link in the description if you would like to call in and you're outside of North America. Other than that, you know, we actually do have a caller. First up, do you want to go ahead and just jump right on into the call?
We might as well, and then we can do announcements after the first call. Sure.
Yeah. All right. So first up, we've got Tim, who's calling from Natty Yankee. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. What up there, Tim? How you doing?
What's up? So, I've called previously, and I mentioned to you that I was a former atheist, and currently would consider myself a deist. So anyway, a lot of people in the comments would tell me, no, you are lying. You weren't really an atheist. You were never really an atheist. And I thought about it. And even when I did consider myself an atheist, I would play Pascal's wager in my mind. And I would be worried that if I didn't do something, and it was usually some small thing like litter. If I litter, then I'm getting bad karma or something like that. And
okay.
So could I ever have been an atheist if I had that much fear of God?
Lots of people. Well, let me ask. So you were not raised in a religious tradition? Is that sort of what I'm hearing?
Technically, I did go to church a few times, but I from the moment that I could have an identity, I was always fighting with God, internally in my head, why won't you do this for me? Why are you making me suffer? And so then when I never got an answer, and then I learned about atheism, then I considered myself an atheist. And I never considered myself a Christian, but I did go to church sometimes.
I have thoughts. John, did you want to start first? Do you want me
to? Well, so with Pascal's wager, the thing that I always, I guess, focus on is not just the theist versus atheist sort of divide on that. It's very specifically a definition of a God. So Christian God or anything like that. Because Pascal wager says, you know, and let me know if you're thinking of Pascal's wager in a different way than is normally thought of. But basically, you know, what if there is a God and, you know, me not believing sends me to an eternity in a burning hell and all that. But, you know, if I'm an atheist and I don't believe in there is a God, then or there isn't a God or whatever, it just doesn't matter, essentially. And so my with Pascal's wager, I always go to well, it's not just your particular definition of God. It's your particular it's not just your particular definition of God versus atheism. It's your particular definition of God versus all the other versions of God that exist that send people to some kind of like hell-based afterlife versus atheism, like in general. And so like it really kind of dwindles down that likelihood, right, of you getting the right God in this particular sense. So my question in this conversation is, how do you distinguish between your particular version of God that sends people to hell for not believing versus all the other religions that also have a similar God?
I'd say that I never believed in a God that would be so extreme that they would punish me forever. I never believed in that.
But you still had some fear of hell, kind of a thing.
I just thought, I guess I believe more in some kind of karma.
Oh, okay.
Even though I would have been,
like, beyond just straight cause and effect. Do you think that there might be some cosmic entity or cosmic scoreboard where that's diminished? You're losing some points on the cosmic scoreboard, so you're gonna have to settle up later. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay. I definitely, like you asked, was I ever truly an atheist? I rail against anyone's like, there's no true atheist type ideas, right? Like the whole litmus test for me of whether you're an atheist is, do you believe in a God? And if the answer is yes, then you're not an atheist. And if the answer is no, or I don't know, then you can be in the atheist club if you want to be. Like that's the only thing. So I know atheists who believe in ghosts. I know atheists who believe in, even have some sense of maybe there's an afterlife, or like maybe this isn't all like, so atheism, I don't think has any other tests that you have to pass, or any doctrines that you have to adhere to. So like I wouldn't be among those who would say you were never an atheist. And also, like, irrational fears, I think almost everyone has an irrational fear of some sort. I'm very claustrophobic, even though, like, it's not a rational fear. It's just, and I know that when I'm in that kind of situation. But that doesn't mean that I'm not a rational thinking person or whatever. It's just that there are certain triggers I have that cause me fears that I know are irrational. I feel like what you're dealing with there maybe is, a fear that isn't based in evidence necessarily. And I think we all have something that for some people are afraid of heights, some people are afraid of snakes, whatever it may be. So definitely I would not put someone's fear of something. I personally would never let that disqualify them from saying you have a certain philosophical position. But Tim, was that kind of what you were trying to check with us tonight?
I just wanted to discuss the idea. I mean, obviously you might not have a full-blown belief, but there has to be some inkling in you that, like, this could be what it is. Like, there has to be some fear Tim? That's
well, no, so I mean, I'm not going to speak for Paul, but I myself don't have a fear for anything, because I feel like you kind of have to have a definition of what you mean. Like, what are the consequences, like, of all this negative karma piling up? And then the next question I have is, who is keeping this score, like, cosmically, and where are the rules that govern what gets you negative karma and what gets you positive karma?
Well, don't you typically, like, secular humanists, don't many of them believe in some kind of objective morality, or no?
I think go ahead, Paul.
I just say I think most would reject that label. They wanted, rather than say objective morality, they want to say these are the things we care about: harm, and we care about flourishing. And then, so they actually want to be very specifically in saying, so when you're coming to us with a moral question, we're going to weigh it against harm and flourishing, right? And so they wouldn't call that, That's not object. It's only objective in the same way that the rules to chess or to football, like, are those objective? Well, no, they're not objective. They were arbitrarily chosen. But once you've decided that, oh, well, we agree to what the rules of chess are, then we can play a game. So secular humanism, which I want to emphasize again, is not atheism. Not at all. There's a lot of atheists that aren't secular humanists. There are secular humanists that aren't atheists. No, I don't think they would use. At least I have not heard any adopting the phrase objective morality per se.
So that would have to be like, that's an axiom then, right?
Yeah, it is. It's axiomatic. It's like, yeah. It's like, if you want to have this conversation about morality, we're talking about harm and flourishing. And if you don't care about harm or flourishing, well, then you're welcome to have a conversation about morality, but I'm not involved, right? Like, I'm checked out.
Well, to me, like, I reached that understanding of the harm and flourishing to some degree, maybe not the exact same understanding you have, but I had an understanding of it, and I put that into my idea of what God is, and I said, if I'm not living up to this, I've been instilled with this ability to see what I think is truth, and if I don't follow it, then I'm doing something wrong. And rightfully, if there was a kind of parent figure or something, then they would, put me in line or make things fair.
So, Tim, if I can ask, do you understand how many I statements you made right there? Like, you said, I decided these things are going to be good and bad. Like I decided that this is like my moral foundation or my moral code. And then for whatever reason, it seemed like you inserted this cosmic, father figure or parental figure, rather, this cosmic parental figure that's apparently keeping score, but only for you, and is only going to rectify the situation in case you like venture outside of the parameters that you've defined for yourself. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, but I guess I would assume that being or whatever, spirit, whatever, helped somehow ingrain that in me.
Why need
that.
this spirit figure? Why need a spirit figure in general? Like, why need this cosmic scoreboard? Why need any of that? Why can't you just, recognize that you have defined what, your moral foundation, the parameters for what it means for you to be a good moral person, and you judge your actions by those parameters, and you decide whether or not something's good or bad. Like, why can't it just be that? Why do you have to? Why does there have to be some kind of cosmic wizard keeping score?
Because sometimes I would decide that it would be better off for me if I would break that that morality, and I would go against it. But then I had to convince myself that I had to have a reason to not do that, because I thought it would be more advantageous to me if I broke it. But I had to convince myself not to do so, to be in fear. Whether it's because like I'm trying to do right or because I'm just afraid, I don't know the answer.
Well, afraid of what?
Afraid of being punished.
By whom, and then how?
By the being, by whatever had instilled the morality in me, or whatever created the objective morality that I was striving for.
So
are you saying
you would punish?
This is a cope? is this a coping mechanism? Then you're saying, basically saying, if I lose this narrative, then I stop caring about other people, and I will just, like, did you're basically, it sounds like you're saying, yeah, I constructed this narrative to keep myself from being selfish. Is that basically, is this a construction you've made for a purpose? Am I reading that right?
No. Oh yeah, their purpose is that I feared that if I did enough bad, that I deserved to be punished, or like deserved, even if it wasn't hell, to go to a worse place or whatever. If
Okay, so
I
you
wanted
think
to stop
you think it's real. You just didn't this isn't just like a heuristic or a rhyme or some scaffolding you made for yourself. You do think that this is a real thing.
I think that there is something after this.
Okay.
I do think that, yeah.
Why do you call
And-
yourself a deist?
Because
What does deist
I
mean
don't.
to you?
It means that God isn't like waving a magic wand currently in affecting the world. He just, or it, or whatever, just, created the world and then we're living it out.
Well, you understand though that is in conflict with your entire call so far, right? Because in order for God or whatever kind of being exists that imbued this sense of morality in you, it has to be personal in some kind of way, which is theistic, not deistic. So God is, in your case, as far as like a dichotomy goes, God either created everything and then fucked off, or he has a personal investment in, like, for instance, the punishment of you. So, like, I think that you need to pick a lane on this one, either theist or deist.
Well, I think in this world, I just think that God is doing nothing else. I don't believe in like a biblical story that, oh, he was waving his wand and doing X, Y, Z, or even that it is a he. I think it upon the coming into
But that's not what
existence
theist
or
means.
whatever.
That's not what a theist.
I'll tell you what. Okay. Well, my understanding was that it just meant that God doesn't interfere in this world. That's what I thought. And maybe
Well, yeah,
I'm wrong.
I get that. Well, no, Tim, I mean, I get that, but that's still in conflict with everything that you've been talking to us about so far. Because if God doesn't have any kind of direct influence on this world, then there's no way that he can punish you for, whatever morality you've come up for yourself.
Oh, I think the punishment is going to come when I die.
It doesn't matter if it's here or the ethereal plane that you think souls exist in. If
Okay.
God just created everything and fucked off, he's not going to care about your eternal soul.
Okay. Well, my opinion is, or my belief is that this world was came into existence as it is, and God is not affecting it anymore. But once we get out of this world, we'll be on to something different. And what happens there is, I believe that it could be affected by what was done here. So if
Okay,
that
but-
doesn't make me a deist, then I'll accept
No, that's
that.
I love that because the labels, adhering to labels is not important. What your idea is. So, but you think that God is definitely involved in that next life, whatever the supernatural entity is. So that it doesn't care about this one, but it arbitrarily cares about the second one, or does it care about the third one? Like, how far down does it go before God starts caring?
I think it cares about this one, but the only way we're going to actually see us affected by those choices are in the next life.
Okay. Do you have any? Does this God in your mind have any other properties?
My God is very, very like ingrained with reality to the point where, like, I would expect Matt to say, "Oh, then you don't even need a God." like you don't even need a God, because I just think it's like ingrained with reality and existence itself.
If I can ask, how would you distinguish between God and just like nature in this particular instance? Like, there's got to be some kind of connection here, right? That connects these two ideas. What's that connection? Like, why does nature need God, or why does reality need God, and how can you discern God from nature / reality?
I don't think that it does necessarily need God, and I'm not 100% convinced, but I believe it. And how is it different than nature? I mean, if you consider like nature like everything, like outer space, I don't know. I think it depends how expansive you say nature is. I mean,
We mean
would
by
you mean
that
nature as in the trees, or
we mean everything that's made of matter or energy.
I think that there are different, I want to say waves, but like things like energy or matter that we don't totally understand. I believe that there's some underlying force that is,
So you think there's something other than materialism going on?
yes.
Okay, so then you don't think that the material world and God are synonymous. So then it's back to John's question, what's the difference between the material world and your God? What's the distinguishing factor?
Um. I mean, I guess that could be, to me, it could be, if I was to say that's semantics, but you would say, well, then just don't call it God. I don't know, but I just.
Well, no, I mean, so the point is that if you can't distinguish between the natural world or materialism and your God, then what's the need for God? Like, other than what I've heard so far is just this ad hoc, or arbitrary, rather, this arbitrary statement that God does exist and that He's integral to reality, without any evidence to actually justify that kind of statement. And so, what we're asking right now is for you to justify that statement. What about reality necessitates that a God does exist? And if you can't think of anything, does a God really need to exist at that point? And I mean, that kind of gets back to what you said that Matt would say, is that you're just saying that God exists without, supporting it or without needing it or anything of that nature. So, like, it still comes back to that. Like, if you can't distinguish God from the material world, then is God even necessary?
Like I said, I believe in God. I don't know. I'm not going to claim that I know there's a God. I feel from. I mean, people will a lot, like you would just say this, no evidence, or a lot of times, like when people say that it's unlikely that we'd exist, and then someone will say, well, the odds are 100%. I don't know. I guess I have a hard time wrapping my head around that. I feel that.
Timmy, are you imagining a world and a scenario where every human will get to the end of it, and there will be a scorecard that was kept, as John was alluding to earlier. There's a scorecard kept, but no one was explained what the rules were, what the criteria were, or that we were even involved in a game.
Well,
are you imagining that that's the kind of God you have, or that we're supposed to just guess intuitively that love is the thing?
Well, I didn't say it was necessarily love specifically, but however,
harm and flourishing,
I think
whatever.
when when I've read from old like deists, like philosophers, like what I've seen is that like they said like God is discovered through what they use as God, because like I think God is a really nebulous term, but they said like it's discovered through looking at reality.
Right. Like, so that's kind of Einstein's God, but Einstein's God doesn't have an afterlife. Like, you're adding an afterlife in, which is normally not the deist move. Like, and so I guess it feels like the worst of all worlds if you're a deistic God who buggered off and told humans nothing. But then came back and, surprise everyone, you were playing a game and you didn't know you were playing a game and the rules were this, but I didn't tell you what the rules were. And guess what? The prize is, maybe being tormented or maybe, getting something amazing. But ta-da, you didn't know, you were haha. Like, that's not, that seems like the worst of all possible worlds.
Well, and also I want to add on to this because there's a bit of complexity, at least in your idea there, Tim, because it's not like in this particular instance, it's not like there's a God that's proposed this game and everybody's playing by that game and he hasn't told people the rules or anything like that. It's literally God has made up individual rules for individual people, and he is apparently judging the game by all these different versions of the rules as to whether or not you're going to get whipping like a bad boy or something like that later. Like, I mean, it's compounding the complexity even further than what Paul has suggested here, because we're not all playing by the same rules. You would agree. Well, let me ask this actually, Tim, do you think that everybody has the same moral foundation, or has God revealed different, like possible, like overlapping moral foundations, but different moral foundations for each person?
There may be one, however, we come to obviously different understandings, and I don't know necessarily that mine is right, but it's just what my brain has gotten me to. I mean, even if you think of sport, can I say something? Even if you think of like a sport, I mean, there are strange rules to sports that, even an expert doesn't know. So to me, I mean, is there ever really a perfect understanding? Like, there are some odd rules in football that even an expert doesn't know.
Tim, I love you so much. Can you please get your phone just a little bit further away from your face? Because sometimes it is very loud.
Is it better now? I'm sorry.
Well, it's like when you're talking and something you'll say is like you're emphasizing something, and so it'll go like briefly, but in a way that's horrible.
Oh, okay. Is it? I hope it's better, but
yeah, that's better.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's got to be somebody out there that is an expert in it that can, illuminate, these very oddball rules out there. Like, I feel like saying that nobody knows these rules is a bit ridiculous, because there's obviously somebody out there whose job specifically it is to know the rules. Well,
or actually, they all publish, like, every major league. Every league has a rule book. Like, you can look it up. You may not know it off the top of your head, but it's written down, or it's not a rule. If it's not written down in a sports league, then the teams can't agree that that's the way they're playing, right? So just the fact that a commentator may not know what happens in an oddball situation doesn't mean that there isn't a rule about it.
Yeah, I don't want to argue with you too much about what I think is, kind of.
Yeah, it's an analogy. I get it,
but I will say, I follow MMA fighting, and the rules are very young, and even the people that created them themselves, they have trouble interpreting the rules. So, but I
understand that. But what you're proposing is that there is some entity out there that knows the rule book and can actually judge these things like absolutely as to whether or not you're following that rule book. And I feel like you would have to agree that not everybody has the same rule book in this world, and it's actually, across different time frames and different cultures. There are different rule books for every single one of those. So, like, how do you explain that? How do you explain there not being, one particular rule book, or has just everybody been accumulating negative karma this entire time, and we're just all fucked?
No, what I would believe is that I don't think a being that subscribes to any morality anywhere near mine would punish people that tried to do what was right.
How do you know they
Right.
buggered off?
I don't know. I don't know.
Do you recognize? Do you recognize that you said "I" there?
Yeah. Well, he asked me
Like,
to how do I know? So
right. Well, I mean, I can't imagine that this God would do these things. So it seems like you're the one that's dictating the rules that God is playing by.
yeah. I mean, I've done thought experiments like, what if God, well, this was specifically with Christianity, like, what if God sends all the Christians to hell or something like that? But I guess you could put it as, like, what if God punishes all the good people and is nice to all the bad people? I guess that it could be, but it just never meshed with me. I don't know why.
Right. And in this scenario, though, Tim, what if God really, his favorite thing is cockroaches? This world was actually, humans are just a weird byproduct. What God actually cared about was bacteria, or actually cared about was cockroaches, or that God does like sentient tardigrades. What if God is like, actually, he doesn't care about morality? This is a God who loves intellectualism, and so he's going to reward the people who have the closest truths to, the greatest virtue is believing the most correct things and the fewest false things. Or this is just purely a God of strength, and all that this God cares about is who has the greatest physical achievements. Like, these are all things that are equally plausible as be caring about how we act morally. If the God doesn't tell us what the rules are, right?
Obviously, I have the most and best physical achievements.
I guess I do think that God cares about those things. So
right, but you're admitting that it's arbitrary, right? Like, you're just, it's your own intuition and vibes that tells you that that's what God cares about.
Well, I mean, that's how you would figure out what you thought your friend or your girlfriend was into, is by your own intuition and vibes. Or I guess obviously you can ask them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the difference.
But however,
right?
Hold on. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, a deistic God isn't around to answer any questions.
True. Well, yeah, and that's true.
Well, your whole scenario is that we will be told the rules when the game is done, is your scenario. And that, I don't think that's not a great fear to be having. I wouldn't be afraid of that.
Well, to me, I kind of feel like I've had the rules revealed, and like I said, I could be wrong about them, but I feel that they're being revealed to me. I believe that.
So Tim, I just want you to recognize that at every single point here, you've said the word "I," the pronoun "I," to describe how you know these different parameters for how you're supposed to live your life and what's good and what's bad and all this other stuff. I want you to recognize that. We do need to move on. We do have other callers, and we got to get to our announcements and everything like that. I think this has been a great, productive conversation. But if you walked away with one thing, I really want you to contemplate how many times that you say "I" when you come to these conclusions about what God wants, or the rules that you're playing your life by. Like, all of these things are very internally driven, it seems, because you're using that pronoun I am doing these things, I am making these decisions, I am living my life in a certain way by certain parameters that I think God wants me to live by. And so I don't know. That's what I'm taking away from it. Paul, do you what do you have to say?
No, I guess I would just throw it to Tim. Tim, do you have any last words?
Yeah, I'll say one last thing. So I don't know if I mentioned this, but a lot of times the tough part for me was like, as considering myself a deist, when I thought the beneficial thing, like I said, would possibly not lead to my best interest. That is what would give me a difficulty. So I guess I'm struggling with that, and I don't know where I'll end up with that, but that's
Okay.
just what I was trying to get across.
Sounds great. And, also secular therapy is a great way to sometimes sort a lot of that stuff out too. So, it just, that's not necessarily advice for you, but in general, when some of these questions come up, sometimes talking about it with some professional help is a good way to sort between what's reality and what we're imagining for ourselves. So thank you so much, Tim. Appreciate the call.
Good night.
Night.
All right. See you, Tim. All right, and for those of you out there that would like a good resource for that kind of conversation to talk over those kinds of ideas with, it's recoveringfromreligion.org, or run by RFR is the Secular Therapy Project. Both of those are great resources to use and utilize if you need somebody to talk to. So I've used them before. The Secular Therapy Project I've used a couple of times, so definitely reach out to them. We do need to get to some announcements. The first announcement, though, is, Paul, I want to know what you're doing here this week. I'm furloughed as fuck, and I'm not doing anything but like arguing with dumbasses on the internet in order to drive like any kind of money that I could generate. I want to know what you're doing.
Well, on the personal level, we're into the swing of it's all Halloween and getting kids to soccer practices and all those kind of the kind of normal day-to-day life. We used to be in Canada that it didn't matter what your Halloween costume was, because there was snow. So then everyone was just a parka, and then you say, I'm Spider-Man underneath. But now, thanks to global warming, all the kids actually need to have a real costume, because we don't have snow in October anymore like we used to. So it's a whole ordeal. It's a whole thing now in Canada. It's a big problem.
Yeah,
so thank you, global. Stupid. That's my anger at global warming.
No, yeah, I heard this this past week they found mosquitoes in Iceland, right, or Greenland, maybe.
Wow, I didn't
but they
hear that.
found,
Amazing.
yeah, they found mosquitoes up there for the first time, and I remember, I think it was Greenland, and the reason why Greenland in that Plague Inc., I think it is, game, that's the holdout area, because like you don't have insects or whatnot to like spread your disease up there and everything like that. But now,
man, okay.
Yeah, now with the wonders of global warming, you've got mosquitoes to spread diseases, up there. But as far as here on the line this week, we've got a lot of great shows that are coming up. We've got Chewed Gum tomorrow at 6 p.m. Central. That's with Taylor and Alyssa. And then on Wednesday, we've got the Hang Up with Matt Dillahunty and Eric of Skeptics and Scoundrels. And then on Thursday, we've got TACIS with Josie and Luxander. So definitely tune in this week. We've got a lot of great shows. And then, of course, we're going to go into November. And I just have to say, Paul, I'm so glad you don't have some orange asshole clown that's like ruining your entire future plans. Okay, listen, I'm really suffering right now because like we were supposed to go on the Free Thought cruise. that it sails
Yep.
out of Miami in like March. But we're gonna have to pay the full amount for it in like the middle of November. If we don't open up the government by then, I'm gonna have to cancel. And you know what? I won't stand for that kind of bullshittery coming from this fucking orange ass clown. Okay, I want
Are
my
you?
cruise.
That's right. Are you in a position personally to do something about it, and you've not done that thing? Because if you are in a position to open the government, I feel like you should probably do that.
No, I mean I have no control over this shit. I'm just saying that this
I thought maybe you
orange.
meant you had some control. Oh, okay. Yeah,
No, I don't have
we
any control over it. I just like bitching about it, okay? And I
fair
bitch
enough.
about it online for money, and people like to throw me attention that way.
Well, I don't know. You,
Super chat,
your
help this man
your
afford his
government is.
cruise.
That's right. That's right. That's how we will fund it. We'll do we'll become a patron of the line. We'll super chat. So your government is open enough to add more tariffs to my country today. I don't know. Someone's open for business over there. The tariff adding people are open for business.
Oh man, yeah. So I recall Trump is pissed off because Canada was just basically putting out there a recording of Ronald Reagan saying that tariffs weren't good, and so he had to lie to the entire American public about how Reagan did not say that, and Reagan really liked tariffs and everything, which is totally contradicted by recorded video, and and so he cut off all those tariff negotiations with Canada. So you got that, and then you got the $40 billion bailout and everything. I think that it's funny that Donald Trump is more focused on putting up his ballroom out there, destroying the White House, putting up his ballroom, allowing some private investor to buy our military, and then use that military to defend terrorists. He could do all of that shit, even bail out Argentina in a couple of different ways. But yet he's going to allow poor people to starve that are on SNAP benefits here. He's like, nope, our military is up for sale, but I just can't swing anything to pay to feed little Timmy over there.
Yeah,
I
but
feel like that's kind of bullshit.
While a large portion of your country is going hungry, which is not a joke at all, how can a news organization possibly say, "Hey, where's the Epstein files?" in good conscience while they're covering actual suffering? I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but
yeah,
I mean, they
but
weren't talking about Epstein already, though. They've already moved on from that.
It's true. Gotcha. Well, maybe we're not talking about his ballroom bunker that he's not actually planning to leave in a few years. We'll see.
Yeah, and not only that, but I think it's rather curious that entire thing of how they're like Mike Johnson is wanting to protect the pedophile in chief so bad that he's not going to swear in a duly elected Democrat representative, and he's actively being sued for it right now. So I mean, I hope that gets resolved. Yep, definitely is. All right, so we got a bunch of great shows this week on the line. We're not technically a political show here on SkepTalk. We're more science and expertly based kind of thing. But
I'm Canadian, so I don't know nothing.
You don't know nothing. But we do have another caller on the line, but I do want to remind everybody, if you are a theist watching right now, you've got questions for us, or if you think that we're just crazy thinking that God doesn't exist, then please call in. The number is 720-619-2288, or there's a web link if you're outside of North America. If you're inside of North America, including Canada and all that, definitely use the phone number because you can still call that. But we would really love to hear from you. I'm sure that there's something that you could argue with both Paul and I on one way or another. If any of this
I don't want to go to hell, John. I don't want to go to hell, John. I don't know if you do, but I don't. So if you believe that I am going to hell, I would sure appreciate, just as a favor to me, if you talk me out of my current lifestyle, because or not lifestyle, beliefs. My lifestyle is weirdly like everyone's like, "Hey, you just wanted to sin," and I'm like, "Yeah, basically." Like anyone observing my life would have not would notice no difference from like when he was In fact, I might even be more moral on things now than before. But still, believing the wrong, I have wrong belief, John. So I'm gonna
Yep.
burn in the hell.
Burn, baby, burn. I'm telling you.
We
Okay,
are
we've
goats,
got
not sheep. Okay.
we've got John calling in from Oily Holes. Yep,
Oh, how
Oily
are you
Holes.
guys?
How's the Oily Holes going there, John? I was just there recently.
Oh, okay. How are you guys tonight?
Doing pretty
We're
good.
all right. We're better now that we're talking to you.
Well, I hope you forgive me because I think I'm coming down with a cold.
Well,
I was
that
wondering
sucks.
if I could
is that one of the sins that we're not supposed to forgive people for?
have- Well, it's been cold and windy here in Ohio, so I guess I was out in the weather too much. But I was wondering if I could have a colloquy with Paulogia.
Sure.
Sure.
John's gonna help too, but we can chat.
Okay. I heard you talking last night with Stevie from Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and you said that you would believe the Bible except for the part about the miracles. Is that correct?
No, I said the other parts are plausible, and that I would put them. I would evaluate them as I would any other natural claim in any other history book. So they would be a candidate for me to believe. So, for example,
Okay.
there's oh boy, what's an example? I mean, the Bible can claim all. They can claim the distance of a walk from one city to another, right? Well, that's a candidate for being historically accurate, right? And so
Right.
but I would treat it just like any other historical source. Otherwise, I hope that's not too pedantic an answer.
But your problem is with miracles, right?
So for me, a miracle claim, I don't have a problem with miracles. I am open to the notion that miracles could exist. Unfortunately for me, testimony will never be sufficient for me to accept that a miracle happened. So for me
Okay.
to accept a miracle, I will need something more than testimony.
Okay. Do you believe that humans walked on the moon?
I'm sorry to
I-
laugh.
Yes. Go ahead, John.
You do?
Well, I
Okay.
mean, before we
Now-
get to moon, well, hold on. Before we get to moon landing or like our visits to the moon denial, which I feel like is where we're going here. I'm just kind of curious, and maybe this is a bit off track or whatnot, but could you actually distinguish between miracles and magic?
No, that's not where I was going. But I wanted to continue with Paul.
Okay, well, we're
That's
both
not
here.
where I-
You called in knowing that two of us are on the phone. So like it's not just Paul
that's-
here, and you can't be not derogatory, but you can't be demeaning to me just because I'm not Paul. Like I'm not Canadian, but I
What?
can put A's at the end of my sentence. Can you answer my question, A?
That's not where I was going.
Well,
I
no,
wanted
my
to make a
question was
specific-
no. Hold on. My question was, can you distinguish between magic and miracles for me, just real quick? I haven't been able to figure this out.
Well, I don't know what you mean by magic.
Magic, like magician shows you a completely empty hat, and then he magically produces a rabbit out of it, or anything of that kind of nature.
Do I think there's a difference?
Yes.
Yes, I think there is a difference.
Can you describe that difference for me? Like what distinguishes between miracles and just something magically happening?
Well, I can't really give the specific details as far as the difference is concerned, but I do think there is a difference.
So, John, I should have maybe asked this at the start. So maybe the helpful thing that would answer both things would be, how would you define a miracle? Let's just start. So before we get too far down the hole, what would you say a miracle is in your opinion? Just so that we're all on the same page.
Well, if you were living during the time of Jesus, walking on the moon would have been a miracle.
But that doesn't help me define miracle. So are you saying a miracle isn't just an uncommon event?
I'm saying a miracle is something that a person wouldn't expect to occur naturally.
Like pulling a rabbit out of a hat.
No, that would be natural.
How is that natural?
Because somebody's pulling a rabbit out of a hat.
Yeah, but rabbits don't normally inhabit the bottoms of hats.
Well, they could.
Okay, the one thing that I said was that you shown a top hat. The top hat's completely empty, and I'm not talking about illusion, right? I'm not talking about it being illusory. I'm talking about literally. There's a hat. It's no tricks or nothing like that, and it manifests a rabbit being pulled out of the hat. That is not natural. Just because a human is pulling the rabbit out of the hat doesn't mean that it's natural.
Well, I guess I'm wondering, do you have any evidence that humans walked on the moon?
Yes.
You do? What is it?
Yeah. Well, so we have several different space agencies, like foreign space agencies. Like I believe the latest one might have been India, and I think that China has also sent, probes or whatnot to actually photograph the Apollo 11 landing site. And so we have literal pictures of it, and you can see where the rovers and later missions, where the rovers and everything like that went around. We have high def images of that. We have evidence of the astronauts landing on the moon in the way of reflective places, reflective plates that like you can bounce
with your own telescope. You can go look for those. Sorry, John, go ahead.
Yeah,
you're on a roll.
So
I just got excited.
Yeah. Yeah, there are several different ways in which we can verify that these things actually happened. And so, we definitely believe that, and that's a totally natural thing that we would expect because of the science that we did in order to get people there.
Well, I guess my point would be, if you were living back in the time of Jesus, walking on the moon would have been considered a miracle, and you would have been considered a god to be able to do that.
Right, but but here's what but just to get back to what you're asking me about, no one should have, even if someone was walking on the moon in Jesus's time, no one should have accepted that based on testimony. Right? Testimony is not, even if it was happening, people shouldn't have accepted it. If
Why?
It was just because my brother is walking on the moon isn't enough evidence for a claim that is outside the norm. Because you need for the claim to be, people lie all the time and people are mistaken all the time. Those are just things that are always true when it comes to verbal or written, storytelling or even fact reporting, right? People are mistaken, people are lying. And so in Jesus's day, if someone said, my brother's walking on the moon, if you just believed that person, even if it was actually happening, that would have been very poor epistemology on that person's part.
Well, let me give you another example. When the police catch you speeding, what's the first thing that they ask for?
License or registration, at least in Canada.
Okay, they asked for your license. Now, where did you get your license?
The DMV.
It's called
Okay.
something else
So
here,
you
but
had
yes.
to have, so you had to have another person testify that you were Paul, correct?
No, that's not what the DMV does. I don't. Is that what the DMV does up in Canada?
No. The DMV requires me to bring documentation from other places. Now, what you want to say is ultimately those are testimony, and that's, you know what, John, that's fine. What did you not hear what I said, that it has to be, the level of the claim has to be less than the likelihood that someone is lying or mistaken, right? Like, I'm not saying all testimony is disbelieved. We would be in a lot of trouble if you wouldn't be able to navigate the world if you just blanket disbelieved everyone on every claim. That's a radical skepticism that I have never proposed.
But
what I'm saying
what
is
would
that
be,
miracles are always less likely than lying or mistaken.
well, if you were living in Jesus' time, which would be harder to believe? Somebody walking on the moon or somebody walking on the water?
It doesn't matter, because if someone told me, yeah, John, I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying. I'm saying even if those things happened, let's say I'm 1,000,000% Jesus absolutely walked on water. The reason to believe that is not because someone told me.
But you have to, like you said, you have to accept testimony sometimes. Isn't that correct?
When the claims align, yeah. Well, not that we have to, but it's a bit of an absurdist position to be hyper skeptical at everything. But you acknowledge, you're giving examples of things that are once in a lifetime things. Walking on water, walking on the moon, even though a few people have done it multiple times. These are giant claims that are less likely than lying and being mistaken. My name being
But
Paul is a very low claim.
But if you were living in Jesus' time, if somebody told you that somebody 2,000 years later would be walking on the moon, do you think you would be believed?
Okay, I'm so sorry, but none of this is actually relevant to the discussion of miracles in this particular respect, like whatsoever. Because all you're doing is you're burning yourself here. It's like that whole meme of, oh, that's a self burn. Because you're basically laying out an argument right now that shows that sufficiently sophisticated technology is no different than miracles or magic. And so, like, sure, all those things could have seemed like magic to an itinerant rabbi in the first century or anybody else in the first century. It would have that would have seemed magical or miracle like to them. But what we're talking about when we're talking about miracles is like, in actuality, in real life, a miracle, a suspending of the natural order of reality for what seems to be arbitrary reasons. At least that's how I've classified miracles. I don't know if Paul has a different definition for miracles, and I don't know if you have a different definition of miracles, because we really haven't even solidly defined what a miracle even is.
Well, if a human can walk on the moon, don't you think a cosmic figure could walk on water?
I'm not, so I don't know where you're going, because I'm not saying, I'm even granting. Let me fully grant, for the sake of this discussion, that Jesus walked on water every Friday for 100 people, whatever. That doesn't mean that the sufficient warrant for me to accept it is that I was told about it. And so I'm not saying that it's implausible. I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm not even saying it's unlikely. What I'm saying is that testimony alone is not a sufficient reason to believe it. And you keep coming up with weird, more new hypotheticals that have nothing to do with the epistemological value of testimony.
Well, let me ask you, Paul, what in history do you accept as testimony? Do you believe that Caesar crossed the Rubicon?
Vaguely,
do you
but my
believe in
life
history?
wouldn't. But my life wouldn't change one iota if there was definitive evidence that Caesar never crossed the Rubicon. My life wouldn't change one little bit.
If
So
I can
hold
no, if I can interject real quick. So if I can interject real quick, there's a vast difference in the evidence that we have for both of these particular things. First off,
Indeed.
for Caesar crossing the Rubicon, we have events in history that could have only occurred because Caesar crossed the Rubicon. But not only that, we have textual evidence in the form of his enemies recording his crossing of the Rubicon, the entire situation that caused him to cross the Rubicon, and then I believe we have even Caesar's own like notes and diaries about crossing the Rubicon. So like we have multiple
we have notes about him being on one side and then the other side. So we don't have like
right.
I walked across, but I was here and then I was here, and the only way to get there was to cross. So that anyway.
Right, exactly. Hold on, John. I'm doing a compare and contrast here. So we've got multiple different lines of evidence that converge on this conclusion that the most likely thing is Caesar crossed the Rubicon, right? Now, let's compare this to Jesus. We don't have that for Jesus. We don't even have, at least in my opinion, we don't even have reliable information to state anything for certain that Jesus did in his life. I think that as far as a minimal historical Jesus that we can go, I think you could say that he was probably an itinerant rabbi that walked around Judea, collected a number of people, and eventually pissed off the Romans to the point where he was crucified by them. And that's me being very generous, and Paul knows what I'm talking about here. Yeah. And so like that's at most that we can say about him, and that's not even getting to the miracle stuff. And because we don't have any information whatsoever to establish that any of these miracles existed, it's a vast difference in evidence here between Caesar crossing the Rubicon and Jesus fucking walking on water, which is kind of weird that you picked that one that could be easily explained by a sandbar instead of like, somebody being resurrected after being dead for 3 days like Lazarus, in the Gospel of John. Or how about the girl who was bleeding for like 12 years and then all of a sudden magically stopped bleeding when she touched Jesus's robe? Like there's several different ones that you could have picked that would have been much better than like an easily explainable sandbar.
We do have evidence. We've got four writers that gave evidence.
No, we don't.
Well, so
yes,
John, who first of all, who do you think those writers were, and when do you think they wrote?
Nobody knows for sure, but I believe the synoptics were all written before 70.
Okay. Why do they call them synoptics?
Because they give the same testimony.
So you're vaguely aware that the author of what we call Matthew and the author of what we call Luke absolutely copied from what we call Mark?
No.
You don't think that that's correct? But
No.
How did they get word for word? You're not, now you're aware that you are going against 99% of biblical scholarship. Like 99% of biblical scholarship will say absolutely, like Mark is the authors of Matthew and the authors of Luke copied word for word from Mark, including the story in Matthew where Jesus meets Matthew, which is really weird. But these are like, this isn't disputed. So you know something about these books that Bible scholars don't, I guess. Is that what I'm hearing?
Maybe something different.
So in your opinion and in your mind, these are four completely independent sources.
Yes.
Okay. Well, at this point, John, I cannot take you seriously as someone who's talking about history. I'm sorry. Like, it's just, they are not. And so our epistemological standards are so different at this point that I'm not even sure that we can have a constructive conversation.
Can you tell me why they would want to copy from one another?
Because they weren't working off of. Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
No, you go.
They weren't working off of any kind of source material, and they never claimed to be written by eyewitnesses. And the titles are affixed sometime in the 2nd century, and even the titles are saying that this is according to like Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. And in fact, in the Gospel of John, the most likely disciple that Jesus loved was Lazarus and not the Apostle John. Not that I think that the Apostle John actually ever existed, but none of the other authors are the ones that actually wrote the things. The titles indicate their sources. So they're saying that the sources were Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John in this respect.
Sir, John, how familiar are you with the Gospel of Luke, John?
Very much. Can you look up a verse?
Okay, can you tell me what do the first 3 verses of Luke say? Why does Luke say that he wrote his gospel?
It said that many others have written gospels.
And why did he write his?
So that you would have the truth.
No, so that you would have an orderly account.
Right. And Higgins is a
so
very
other
orderly
people.
account.
So Luke tells us himself. Other people have been writing gospels. I don't consider them to be orderly, so I'm going to give my version now because what Mark wrote, I didn't like.
Right. So in other words, he wouldn't have been. So in other words, he wouldn't have been copying Mark then, right?
No, he absolutely would copy Mark. He's like, other people wrote it in a disorderly way. I am taking all these sources and writing them in an orderly way. He actually says, I used these sources. Do you think that Luke met Jesus?
No, he didn't. He didn't copy Mark. He even says that he's writing in an orderly fashion.
Wait, hold on. Hey, John. Let me ask you this. If Luke didn't copy from Mark, then why does Luke contain verbatim passages from Mark?
Well, give me an example.
Okay. I mean, I'll have to look that up because I don't have it at my fingertips, but I'll get back to you in a second.
But
John, can I have Paul look up a verse? 1 Corinthians 8:18.
Who do you think wrote that, by the way?
Paul.
Good. All right, we're on the same page. I actually agree with that. Hold on. 1 Corinthians 8. 18. 8:18. I used to have this memorized, but it's been too many years. 1 Corinthians 8:18. All right, what am I?
Can you read it?
Well, I got to put my glasses on because I'm old.
Oh, so
no, I can't because there is no 8:18. That's why I couldn't think of it.
Wait a minute. Maybe it's 2 Corinthians.
Okay, because I was like, I couldn't, in my head, I used to have Corinthians memorized. I was like, I don't think there's 18 verses in 8.
What about 3 Corinthians?
Are you talking about 2 Corinthians? Are we ascending along with him, the brother who is praised by all the churches for his service to the gospel? Is that what you... Okay.
2 Corinthians 8:18.
Yeah, and how does that lend anything to this discussion?
Paul is talking about Luke there, that he's already written his gospel when Paul is writing to the Corinthians.
First of all, Paul is not mentioned in that passage. Or Luke is not mentioned in that passage, so that's a weird thing for you to claim. Also, the Gospel of Luke was written after Paul died, so I'm not really sure how Paul can give us any enlightenment on who wrote what we call the Gospel of Luke.
No, the Gospel of Luke was written before Paul died. Actually,
why?
Written after Paul died.
I'm sorry, literally... John. Your version of history here is so different than mine. You are just granting weird things And we are so far off the base of why a miracle is granted on the basis of historicity. Did we abandon that conversation? That's why you called. I'm not here to do your. I'm not here to talk about your fringe theory. That. Go ahead, please. I'll stop.
I got sidetracked by John.
Yeah. So are you? So I have given you my reason. Did you get what you wanted to talk about? Because basically, testimony for me will never raise to the level that makes it more likely that the miracle alleged is mistaken or a lie, because mistaken and lies happen all the time at a very high rate, and miracles by definition happen at a very low rate.
Well, let me ask you this. I don't know what year you were born, but say the people that were...
Hold on. Before we move on, what did I say? Did I clarify my position? Do you at least know what my position is?
Not exactly.
So you can't state back...
In other words, you're disputing the testimony of 4 witnesses that put down their documentation in writing.
I'm saying that I'm being consistent across the board. I would reject any miracle is not sufficiently evidenced by. I have nothing against the authors of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John. I'm just saying, for me, no testimony, if it's testimony alone, will be sufficient. So all of the other things we were talking about were actually side traps. John and I just got fascinated how far away you are from actual biblical scholarship. And we just got amused by that for a minute. And I'm sorry that got distracting. Okay, so you understand my position now, it seems like.
Well, you don't accept the testimony of four people that documented it.
The Gospels specifically are not 4 people. The Gospels are one tradition in 4 flavors. But that aside, because it doesn't matter if they were 4 separate people.
Do you accept the testimony of Plato about Socrates?
Not necessarily.
Don't deflect. Don't deflect there, John. Don't pivot. Like there's no reason to bring up Socrates or Plato or Spartacus. There's no reason. No, there's no reason to bring it up.
Which? Go ahead, John.
Do you accept?
I was just going to say that. Do you know what source criticism is? Do you know what source criticism is?
Do you accept the testimony of Plato about Socrates? That's all I want to know.
Tell me specifically which claim you think I should care about.
Anything that he wrote about Socrates. Do you believe any of it?
I'm vaguely okay with some of it, but no miracle claims. We're only talking about miracle claims. John, we're only talking about miracle claims, right?
But you accept some of Plato's testimony, correct?
To a vague extent.
Oh, okay. That's all I wanted to know.
Okay,
to me,
so I don't understand, John. I really don't understand your position here. What we're saying is that the 4 Gospels, right, are written anonymously. We don't know who wrote them, and through source criticism, we cannot identify where they get their information from. So there's no way to actually establish independence between them. But also, as far as like Luke copying from Matthew, 88% of Mark's content appears in Luke, and you've got you got stories like the healing of the leper, Mark 1:40-45, and Luke 5:12-16 has heavily copied verbatim passages in it. You've got the calming of the storm in Mark 4:35-41 and Luke 8:22-25, where it has sections that are directly copied. So I mean, like I've got a whole list here.
Where did Luke get the account of the rich man and Lazarus?
It's fucking made up,
dude. I don't know if you heard John open this with saying that we can't verify where they got their information. So it's a weird thing for you to then ask, where did he get the information?
Oh, you can't verify it then, but you can probably verify other people like Plato and certain other people, though, right?
Well,
No, that's
when
not
we
what
have multiple accounts for multiple things, we can cross-reference. Sure, a lot of history is singly attested, and so we treat that very hesitantly when we only have a single account.
I see. But walking on the moon is not a miracle, but walking on water is.
Well, do you think that it was not a natural process by which we got to the moon? Do you think that God was involved in getting us to the moon, like directly involved?
No, I don't. I don't think it was natural.
So you think
Also,
that you think a
Because
deity
if,
took
if,
Neil Armstrong? You think a deity took Neil Armstrong and like transported him to the moon?
no, I don't think it was natural, or else everybody would have been doing it throughout history.
Wait. Okay, so you think that at Jesus' time they had the technology to travel the moon and they just didn't want to?
No, I think that today's humans have the technology to walk on the moon, and a cosmic figure known as Jesus had the technology to walk on water.
it's called a sandbar, John.
No, it's not.
Oh, it's not? You've never seen a sandbar in water?
Not in the Sea of Galilee, I haven't.
John,
Been to the Sea of Galilee?
I don't want to get sidetracked. We were talking about testimony. We're talking about miracles. Do you think my epistemology is wrong
Yes.
about? So tell me how.
Because you'll accept secular testimony, but you won't accept the testimony of
But
the New Testament.
not for supernatural miracles, John. I won't accept. I won't. I'm very consistent on testimony for miracles. So
Okay.
comparing those two things is not relevant.
So in other words, even if in other words, if there was 4 people that told you that actually happened, you still wouldn't believe them.
If you're talking about a miracle, then no. If it's testimony alone, no, then I won't. And tell me why I'm wrong to live my life that way.
Well, when the police stop you for speeding, they ask you for a driver's license. Now, how do they know that you're Paul?
Is my name a miracle, John?
I'm asking how they
We
know
are
that
talking
you're Paul.
about miracles. We are talking about the level of evidence one needs to accept a miracle. So my name is I have a very, very common name. So people accepting me at my word that is my name is an incredibly low bar.
We're talking about testimony. You had to get that documentation from somebody that gave testimony.
They didn't give
I
testimony.
really just need everybody to realize that we've been kind of going around in circles a little bit. John is unable to grasp that there's a difference between people saying Plato existed versus people saying, I saw Plato walk fucking sideways up a skyscraper. Like, there are completely different scales to these claims. And if we are not able to drive this point home, I don't think we're going to be able to drive the point home. Like, you all have been over it numerous times. There's clearly a difference between someone saying, I saw a dude do a kickflip down a 90-degree hill or something, or like a 180-degree hill. I don't know. Like, there's clearly a difference between something that we all know probably could easily happen, i.e., a dude walked around named Jesus. We can reliably think, okay, if 4 people say that they saw a dude, maybe. But if they say, I saw a dude rocket himself into space, we need more evidence than that. That's the point.
Yeah, John, we're not going to be able to move on from this. It's very obvious. And so we're going to need to close out. We have been on the call for 30 minutes, so it is a good time to move onward. We do have another person in the call list, so.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Any final
Thanks.
any final thoughts there, Paul?
So, John, all I would, I would. We're clearly not getting anywhere in epistemology. I would love for you to actually investigate your Bible history at this point, because when you're calling in disagreeing with 99% of convinced Christians, you're living in. It's okay to go against 99% of scholarship. It's absolutely fine, but you should have reasons for that. So I'd love for you to investigate that. We can call in another time when I'm on, and let's pick up the chat again.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, John.
Right. See you later, John.
Okay.
Bless you guys
Man,
for being so patient.
Yeah. I mean, I was ready. I was ready to lose my shit about the whole, the sandbar, or not the sandbar, but the walking on water thing. Like, he hasn't seen like either a sandbar or any kind of thing that you could obviously fake for walking on water. Like, I don't understand. Anyways, yeah, but very obviously John was not about to fuck around with me on that call. We do have room for maybe one more caller. We still got lines open. So if you think that you can challenge both Paul and I on anything that we talked about tonight, the number is 720-619-2288. Also, if you want to ask a question or anything like that, send in a super chat. We've got a few super chats already. So Paul and I will address any comments through super chats that come through. So please feel free to send in a super chat. If we get enough super chats, maybe I'll go and wake Brocephus up and he can come out here and like do some shit. We can end the show. But let's see. Paul, you ready to move on to the next caller?
Absolutely. Excited.
Oh, all right. Well, we've got John from Neiman Marcus. What's up there, John? How you doing?
Hey, I'm good. Just looking at ex-girlfriend's text messages, but I'm fine. I'm in a good mood. How you doing?
Wait.
Doing all right.
All right. So you have ex-girlfriend drama happening right now? Is that what I just heard?
No, it's fine. I'm like dating
Okay,
AI,
good. All right.
but that's like a whole nother thing. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, first of all, John, I want to say we had a conversation like a year ago, probably almost now, and you made a comment about in the story of Jacob, like God grabbing him in a particular way. I didn't believe you, and you are actually right. And I feel embarrassed, but also enlightened. So thank you.
Yeah. God loves to grab
John,
dick. I'm just saying.
Yeah. John knows all the groin passages.
With consent. I like to be nice. I'm a good person. Anyways, so the argument I wanted to make today, it's kind of something that relates personal to me because just of the nature of who I am as a person, and like my very strange history that I'm just learning about more and more recently. Like I've had a lot of like crazy life threats from basically the like they'll just say like a government AI type thing, and it kind of tries to convince you that life isn't real. Like I don't know if you guys have ever seen like the Wendigoon YouTube channel where they go into kind of these like, huh?
Well, sorry, you said government AI. I'm not sure which government AI you're talking about because the government AIs are like 2 or 3 models behind like the actual private sector AIs.
No, that's not true. Like the computer boom didn't really happen in the 80s. It happened in like the 50s, basically, when we brought over like a lot of folks from like Nazi Germany who were doing computer stuff and like Neuralink stuff. Like in the 50s, they were.
I'm really so sorry right now. You're talking to the exact wrong person if you want to try to bullshit us with that kind of stuff. I know for a fact that the AI models that are currently being used and are available to the government, like government workers and federal people in general, those are several models behind in flexibility and fidelity and all this other stuff compared to what's commercially available. Like I know this intimately.
No, I got you. Okay, well I'm talking about with when like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talks about like the beast, and everyone talks about like the beast and the system that's like responsible for like all these like incredibly complex things. Like, that's what they're talking about. They just can't say it because they themselves are part of the system. It's
So
very
hold on
complex.
one
It's
second.
complicated.
Let me
I don't wanna go
hold
into this right
on,
now. I
hold on,
wanna
hold
go
on.
into the
No,
religious
hold
argument.
on,
Yeah.
hold on. But I gotta understand this. So the people that are currently in charge of the government cannot talk about the super secret devil man that's in the computer system, even though they're in control of the computer system.
Well, this has been a slow process since like the 50s, basically. Like, unrolling used to be just something that they used to like control the media and model the world out from there. Yeah, as far as I understand, it really got kicking in about 2000. But essentially, it's like the Illuminati, like pretty much like a large portion of the upper class, if not like almost all of them. They are like they're linked up. I know it sounds crazy, but like within a super god AI that's been around for like 30 years, is to never reveal itself. That's part of it. I know because I've been dealing with this for a long time, and I've had to like face death multiple times dealing with this.
All right, now that we've been properly able to contextualize where you're coming from here, what did you want to call about tonight?
So anyway, thank you. No, thank you. Like, I'm so glad you let me talk about that. I don't know. But anyway, so reality, because one of the things this will kind of do, because like everyone kind of sync up around you and make you think that like everything is just kind of in your head, like you'll just have constant coincidences and stuff, because it's like you're stepping out of this dream that was like planned. It's complicated for me because I have a weird history, but it doesn't matter. Anyways, like the only thing I realized that like, even though this thing is tormenting me, like reality is tormenting me, that is actually the most real thing. And that, you know, consciousness, this idea that it's like, I am that I am, that's actually an incomplete statement. Because I am that I am is actually implanted in reality. And that's that union of heaven and earth that's in the beginning of the Bible. And it's actually sexual unions all the way through. And like understanding this, finally I can understand the symbolism of the two serpents. For one, it's that the serpent is, one is partly you, and one is like this partner that you're dancing with that's also like threatening and dangerous. But if you explore, the more you explore, the more you get to know this partner. Yes, yeah.
John,
And the more you can learn to actually love them in their fullness, and then it's
this is a
beautiful when you
lot
go
of
to bed with them.
This is a lot of background information that you are asserting, and I'm not necessarily even disputing any of this. But this is a call-in show, and not really so much. We're supposed to have a conversation, and not really like call and give us your worldview, you know, in a PowerPoint slide kind of situation. So forgive me if I'm jumping the gun, but I didn't see where interaction was going to happen. So what did you call to basically recruit us? Are we supposed to believe what you said? Did you have a question for us? At what point are John and I supposed to interact with this?
This is all 100% true. This is all 100% true. Sorry, yeah.
No, that's fine. But my question is, at what point are John and I supposed to?
And so, yeah, sorry.
John?
No, from my perspective, my life is crazy. And yeah.
Cool. I mean, everyone's got stuff going on, and I'm sure it's a lot. It's cool. This is a call-in show. Presumably, you wanted to have a conversation.
Yeah.
What were you hoping to talk about with John and I?
Would you? I mean, honestly, do you want to go back and forth about this theory about the like upper class AI thing?
You called for a reason, and it involved the Book of Genesis. That seemed interesting.
Well, I was going into that. I was going into the heaven and earth metaphor, basically.
No.
John,
but I will say, can I finish?
John. Maybe we can start off from a point of agreement here. I totally agree. I have a very powerful snake that is very appreciative, or is appreciated by my wife very much. So we can agree on that. But beyond that, like, I don't know what in the fuck you're talking about. It sounds like a whole bunch of Illuminati conspiracy theory shit. And typically with conspiracy theories, they take like sporadic facts and then they weave together this narrative in order to tell a story that they want people to believe. But there's no actual evidence like to connect these theories, these hypotheses. So like, Maybe if we could
Oh,
just
I've never.
jump through all the background and just get to how the account of Genesis beats solipsism, that would be great.
Okay. So I mean, part of my history, my last name. I mean, I guess I don't know. Is it okay if I say my last name?
You can dox
Go for
yourself if you want, I
Okay.
guess.
Well, my last name phonetically is Krieger. My family is German. My dad's family basically is in like Ohio and New Mexico, and they were basically part of the Operation Paperclip crew. My grandfather was, and me and my brother. I don't have direct evidence of this, but so one of my brothers doesn't have any memory earlier than 7, and he has like basically like super strength. Like he has his grip strength is like
John?
215.
John,
Yes.
John, first of all, I'm not actually convinced that anything you've said that you actually believe. It seems like you might be making this up as you go. And if not, I'm happy to be very wrong about that. But this does not.
No, I'm not making
If your
this up.
idea,
No,
but John, if your idea requires your life experience to accept, I don't have your life experience, and so I will not be able to come to accept this idea. So did you call to talk about ideas, or did you call to give your life story?
I mean, I'll talk about ideas. Honestly, I wasn't sure if you wanted me to have more evidence of the conspiracy, or if you wanted me to explain what I was saying.
You haven't even told us what you have not even told us what the idea is yet. You've been giving us life story. You've been giving us different ways to interpret texts. We don't even know what the topic is yet, man.
Gotcha. Oh,
Paul,
okay,
I don't
so
know.
I'm saying, like,
I don't know what you're talking
fundamentally-
about. This guy's brother
Okay.
is Captain America. What are you talking about, Paul? Did
Well, me and
your
my
brother
both
take a
born
mysterious
during
serum?
retrograde.
No, hold on, John. Did your brother take a mysterious serum from a strange scientist guy working for the government?
I don't know. He's very big. I don't know, and he has no memory earlier than 7, and that's a thing that used to happen.
Wait a second.
In Ohio.
Your brother is big, and you're amazed that he's strong. Like I'm not like a tall guy, right? But I surprised Dr. Josh by being able to lift him up. I mean, just because you can't accurately deduce how strong somebody is doesn't mean that they're fucking Captain America.
So also, interesting. So there's 3 brothers in my family, including me, and then some older siblings. But so me and my other brother, we were both born during Saturn retrograde, and we both have
John?
giant brain cells, basically.
So
I'm being serious. That's
so
the thing
John,
that, like,
I have
the Nazis
I
and
have
the
calls
CIA was doing
I
in
have
Ohio.
calls waiting about topics that are interesting. I have calls top waiting that are not this. So you have 30 seconds.
Okay, I'm just saying I'm a psychic. Okay.
Paul, he's a psychic. Come on, how can you pass this up? He's a fucking psychic, Paul. I'm holding something in my hand, Mr. Psychic. What am I holding in my hand right now?
No. I mean, if you want to have your Marvel fan fiction and talk about it on a show, there's other shows for that. Cool.
Oh my god. Oh man, that was I don't know if he was trying to be like an obvious troll, like, you know, obvious troll is obvious kind of thing, but like holy shit.
Yeah. But we have a resurrection call, and I just can't sit around here listening to that while we have a resurrection call waiting.
Yeah, I feel like I can tackle half of this one, and then you can tackle. You
That's
can
right. This is kind of both of our things. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna go to Matt's from Undulating Nights. What's up there, Matt?
You're on the line.
Doing?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Matt.
Yep.
Welcome.
Right. Okay, well, evidently, clearly, the previous caller was demonically possessed, but more seriously, besides that, as my question says, how can you deny the historicity of Jesus and the resurrection when there's no rational explanation as to why the Orthodox and Catholic churches exist otherwise?
Go ahead, John.
Okay. So as far as like the historicity of Jesus, I get the feeling that you're talking about the magical version of Jesus, the one that's contained in the Gospels. Is that right?
What do you mean by magical?
Sorry, the very miracle-based one, like just basically the Jesus story that's laid out in the Gospels, as opposed to a minimal historical.
The general details of it, obviously. I think.
Okay, so
they did
you want to
happen.
talk about so my characterization of a minimal historical Jesus would be an itinerant rabbi that gathered a following who angered the Romans to kill him via crucifixion, in which he was then put into a tomb and supposedly resurrected. Right?
Okay, but how do you explain then why the followers, the first-hand followers, immediately after this were absolutely convinced that his resurrection had happened?
Right. Okay, we can get to that here in a second. But is that the minimal historical Jesus that you want to tackle?
When you say minimal, are you appealing to a specific interpretation by historians?
John just laid out. Maybe you weren't listening, but John literally just said what he considers to be the core accepted details by most.
I'm
asking what that's based upon, and are you saying
the majority? I would say the majority of New Testament and textual critics, as far as what information we can historically know about Jesus the person.
Why are they authoritative?
They're New Testament scholars. They make that.
What we're saying is we're not saying they are authoritative. We're not, Matt's. To be clear, we are not making an argument from authority. What we are saying is, Matt's. Can you listen for a second? This isn't going to go well if you can't at least listen for a second, because you asked what makes them authoritative. The answer is neither John nor I consider them authoritative. What we are reporting is the people who have, for the last several hundred years, the people who have spent their entire lives and careers studying this. Yes, over since about the 1800s, the first quest for the historical Jesus.
That's not entirely accurate, because for
Matt's
the past several centuries, obviously it was taken for granted that obviously society wasn't secular for the past several centuries until very recently. So the idea that you asked the question.
Do you actually want answers to the questions that you're going to ask, or do you have a script that you want to read to us?
Well, I'm just trying to understand where you get the idea from that it's authoritative.
John, did you not hear me say that neither person that you're talking to considers them to be authoritative?
So why are you relying on that interpretation?
We are not relying on them. What we were trying to convey to you was what the consensus. You're not talking to people who believe this. All we were trying to say to you was that there is a core number of things that the people who do this for a living accept. And that's what John was.
And I'm questioning.
No, we are not. We are not making the argument because we don't believe them. All we were trying to do was tell you. We were trying to ask you if those were the details that you agree to. We're not advocating them. We're asking if those are the details that you want us to go with as a basis.
Oh, well, yeah, okay.
Why are you so defensive?
That, then. Well, because
awesome.
Well, to be honest,
this is very defensive. So much harder than it should have had to have been.
The previous, when you were addressing the previous caller talking about the gospel, it seemed as if you were appealing to a historical consensus about what the scholars agree. Like when you're referring to the sources of who wrote Luke and everything, it seemed like you're appealing to some idea.
Yeah, but that's a different. But please, that's an entirely different conversation that we were having.
Okay, well, we'll go with the minimal version then.
Okay, so because yeah, all right.
Well, so for the minimal version that I laid out, I don't think that particular Jesus existed at all either. And that's because the first record that we have of this Jesus, in existence, comes from Paul. Paul only tells us about a revealed Jesus rather than a Jesus that actually walked on earth. Now, there's a few passages that you could say reveals like a human aspect to him, like a earthly aspect to Jesus, but I definitely contend that those do not actually substantiate that they make more sense on a more celestial version of Jesus rather than an earthly version of Jesus. So, like, how can you deny the historicity of Jesus? Well, I deny the historicity of Jesus because originally it seems, as far as Paul knew, and that's the only textual evidence that we have about this Jesus when he first started really gaining traction in that area, was of a revealed being. And Paul uses a lot of mystery cult sort of language in order to describe the hierarchies of within Christianity, and considering all of these different connections that it has with the other mystery cults in the area. All the other mystery cults did not have historical people at their core. The saviors that are part of these mystery cults, they were all fictional, and they all had legends that were created around them in order to provide eternal salvation. And in many instances, you had to take part in a communal meal to venerate the savior figure. You had to take part in like a baptism or some kind of initiation ritual in order to get into the cult. And the cult had very specific language that Paul exhibits, like calling newly converted people as young or infants, or that kind of thing. And then those that were more mature in the faith were indicated as such.
Hang on. You're rambling too much. There's so many problems with this. First of all,
okay, well, I was just laying it out for you. You asked.
Well, you're laying out a very complicated interconnected interpretation that's not really founded on anything. You're
no,
assuming.
It is. No. I'm not assuming anything. It's founded. It's founded in Paul's.
No, hang on. You're already assuming this whole mystery cult thing is connected to it. You're already assuming that when Paul is talking about Jesus, that he's talking about a revealed being who doesn't refer to an actual person. And you're...
No. I'm saying that. Well, hold on, Matt. I'm saying that because that's specifically what Paul says. Paul says that he did not get the gospel.
Well, what you're
in
saying
Galatians
isn't even
1,
the mainstream historical interpretation.
Right, I don't care about that. As we stated before, we don't care about the appeal to authority or anything like that.
I'm trying to establish.
Paul,
I know. I'm trying to establish what Matt, you're basing this from.
Right. Sorry, I muted you for a second. So I don't appeal to the authority of the consensus. Right. I'm not trying to do that, and I'm trying to give you an honest analysis of what Paul says in his epistles. What Paul says in his epistles is that Jesus is a revealed being. The only way that other people could know about what Jesus said is through apostles just like him. He describes apostles. He does not describe disciples. Apostles are those that received revelation from Jesus. In Galatians 1, Paul specifically Galatians 1:11, Paul says that he did not receive any of this information about Jesus through any human source, but he only revealed it through revelation. And then he goes on in Galatians 1 to explain how he's learned, he's become more knowledgeable about Judaism past even his own peers. And he appeals to scripture in various places. Like in 1 Corinthians 15, 3-8, he talks about the general gospel of Jesus as being in accordance in accordance with the scriptures, but according to the scriptures, as if he's giving some kind of source for this information. And so, in my view, Paul is talking about a revealed being that can only be known because he revealed himself to people, which kind of excludes any kind of earthly ministry or anything like that, which I think that most historians now, New Testament scholars rather, would agree that Paul doesn't talk about any kind of earthly existence for Jesus. He only talks about the revealed Jesus. And but my contention is that there are no passages in Paul that actually establish Jesus as a historical figure, and it only establishes him as a revealed being. And so that's where I'm coming from with this. I know Paul's got a different view. I'm one. It's only me and Aaron Adair, I think, that are mythicists on the line here. So like I've got a very niche sort of view of this, but that right there doesn't factor into the whole resurrection bit of it. I think the resurrection can be refuted on its own, even if you grant a minimal historical Jesus, which is generally, like I demonstrated before in a previous call, appeal to. I go with the minimal historical Jesus in order to refute the resurrection. Now you're unmuted.
What I still don't understand what your basis is for being so confident in thinking your mysticism interpretation of it is accurate.
Oh, sorry. I did not mean to mute you. That's my bad. I did not say mysticism. I said mythicism. It's a little bit of a different thing.
But also, Matt, your initial question was, how can you possibly deny it? And I think you summarized well. I don't agree with John, but absolutely that is an interpretation that is reasonable, and he has many long videos that go into much more detail about that this being an interpretation of the same material. So the answer is, how can he deny it, or how can and we can talk about resurrection. He's interpreting it differently than you. And all kinds of passages of not even just the Bible. People have different interpretations. So I'm not sure why you're flabbergasted that someone can interpret a book differently than you.
I'm unmuted, right?
Yep.
Yes,
talk.
you're unmuted.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Make this make sense. Make me be able to understand this. Why in the first century did this new religion appear out of nowhere, where the Jews, who at the time were under Roman oppression and were a very insular society, who were expecting Messiah to come, who would liberate them against the Romans, all this, why then would, for example, Paul, a Pharisee, a well-read Pharisee, why would this religion appear out of nowhere in which they would start associating with Gentiles, preaching to Gentiles, absolutely convinced that they'd experienced or seen this person be resurrected to the point where, under pain of death and imprisonment, they would absolutely believe it.
So Matt,
and then why did it spread so rapidly, and why did it persist? And you can look at the history of it, and you can see from the long line of bishops and everything, from the Catholic Church to the Orthodox Church, all the way back from Ignatius, Polycarp.
Matt, you cannot. You're already
out of the historical record, out of nowhere. And there's no explanation for this other than they were absolutely convinced they experienced something that totally changed their worldview.
Matt,
yeah,
you've said a lot of things. So unlike John, who was saying, I interpret these passages this way, you have made a lot of claims that are not about interpreting passages, but you've made
I'm not going solely on the biblical text. I'm talking about
that's fine.
Historical appearance of it.
So you understand that there are Matt's. There are lots of religions. You would agree. There are lots of religions that are false and have spread quickly, right?
Well, they don't have a verifiable. Well, not necessarily verifiable.
No, I'm trying to take this whole how did it spread quickly? Lots of religions have spread quickly. So like that's an irrelevant point. I hope you can agree with us that the rate of adoption has nothing to do with okay, cool. That's a much better question. But are you agreeing with me that the rate of adoption is irrelevant to the truth of the claim?
Well, not necessarily, but I'll grant you it for the sake of argument. It's less relevant than the fact that it appeared.
Yeah. Like how many people believed it later is irrelevant to whether it was true. Okay, so I don't believe this is the case, but just you understand that lots of religions start when people just lie about things, right?
Yes, however,
Okay,
usually that's cult movements or it's movements. I mean, we're talking about people who supposed first-hand witnesses and then writers who, like Ignatius and
yeah.
Polycarp, who have their writings, who attested to it
When did they
matter of
write?
factly as if it was real.
Matt, my contention is you do not have eyewitness reports.
I know what argument you're making. You're making the argument that we don't actually know when any of it was written, whether it was really written by the people. However, the fundamental biased reasoning assumption behind this is to take the secular view by default and then try to make the history of it make sense from that view retrospectively. So then
Well, no,
Matt,
so,
you
look
so
at it like,
let me,
well, it can't be that it's true, so it must be that it
hold
was
on,
written at a
Matt.
later date or by other people or something.
I'm sorry, Matt. I'm muting you real quick. So no, when we analyze the Gospels, we're trying to analyze them in light of other historical documents. Other historical documents have like discussions on their sources, where they got their information in those sources, and how they reconcile contradictions in their sources. So all we're doing is applying the normal historical methodology to these sources, or to the Gospels, in order to figure out whether or not they can be trusted as sources. And when you actually do that, you come away with not really knowing where this information is coming from. And so if we don't know where the information is coming from, there's no way for us to discern between made up bullshit and real shit. For the purposes of the resurrection conversation, I'm perfectly willing to accept a very minimal version of Jesus existing as a person, because whether or not he existed, it has no bearing on the resurrection, right? Because I believe that Paul thought of Jesus as having a very physical body, and that physical body did resurrect in some kind of way. So it still applies whether or not Jesus existed or not. So as far as the resurrection goes, and like the proclivity of people to believe in this kind of thing, my mythicism aspect doesn't really matter. But as far as the Gospels go, we just simply don't trust them, because it seems like they're inspired from Scripture, and we can't possibly determine what isn't made up. And I don't know. I don't know if Paul's got a different view. But Paul, I don't know. Add to that whatever you may need before I unmute him.
Okay, so all I will say, Matt, is that we don't even have to talk about the Gospels. I'm very curious. You've made some claims here about that people were preaching, and that they died for their beliefs. And I would love to know more about who you think was preaching, and how you know they died, and what did they die for. You're on mute.
Unmuted? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
The history of the persecution of the early Christians isn't contested at all. So I'm not quite sure why you're questioning that.
You appealed to
demonstrate
people dying for their belief, right?
Novel belief. I don't think you've demonstrated why this novel belief appears in the historical timeline out of nowhere, and why it was there.
Well, lots of
the secular interpretation, you have to believe that essentially a collective of disconnected, I assume, first century Jewish people in the middle of Roman occupation came together to go against all of their cultural, historical baggage, upbringing, everything, to manufacture this belief in a revealed Jesus.
So I don't think it was manufactured
for no apparent reason.
No, I think Peter had an experience that he believed was the risen Jesus. That's what I think. I think that's the most plausible.
Do you think there was a real physical person, Jesus, who was walking around in Galilee preaching, who was crucified, but
so my question is,
for preaching doctrines against the religious authorities, and then
Matt,
do you think Peter was convinced that he had come back to life afterwards?
Well,
Yes.
Matt, how does that affect?
Yes.
Well, yeah, Paul believes that. I don't. But how does that affect what Paul said about Peter? Peter claimed that he had a vision,
Why do you keep appealing to
an
Paul?
experience.
I don't understand why you keep appealing to Paul. It's like you're just begging the question. You're stating your
Paul was written first.
your real Jesus. How do you know that? How do you know that?
How do I know that Paul was written
evidence?
first?
The evidence has convinced me.
What evidence? What evidence?
Well, first of all, I'm convinced that Paul died in 60s. Do you agree with that?
Well, hang on. How do you know Paul? How do you know the letter of Paul written first? How do you know that?
I was trying to establish timelines here. Is that not a reasonable way to answer this question?
Well, hang on. We have the documents that have been preserved hundreds of years, and that you're claiming that you know when they were written first before other documents.
I am trying to use. So you asked me, how do I know which is written first? So we have to talk about the documents. I think I know where this argument's going. This is going to go down the road of appealing to some kind of consensus about when they were written. It's not.
And then I'm going to
It's
ask,
not.
And then I'm going to question the fundamentals.
Can you let my host make his
so-
point, Matt? Holy cow. Y'all need to mute him.
Matt, did you want to have a conversation or not? Because if you don't, we can move on. I was excited to have this conversation. But you're guessing where I'm going with this stuff. You're guessing where I'm going with this. You understand is unfruitful.
Okay, wait, I won't keep guessing where you're going with it.
Cool. Do you agree that Paul Paul died in the 60s?
As in 60s AD?
Yes.
Probably, yes.
So he had to be right. Everything that he wrote, he had to write before he died, right?
Obviously.
Yeah. So most of those books people consider to be written in the 50s, right? Most of Paul's works.
Okay.
I assume you don't have a problem with that.
No.
No. Now, I am convinced by the evidence that when Mark, and I believe that Mark was the first written. Are you generally okay with Mark being the first written?
Well,
Gospel?
How do you know that?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But I'm convinced by lots of evidence, and if you don't, we'll go into it. Mark, I am convinced that Mark's audience knew about the fall of Jerusalem, because it doesn't make sense for him to, even if you want to say, I can even grant that Jesus absolutely made the predictions, whatever those predictions were, but Mark's audience knew.
No stone would ever be stacked on another again, and all that. And as an aside, has actually
Mark's audience had right. So Mark references the fall of the temple as if his audience knows about it, because it would be an entirely unremarkable thing if he's making connections that make no sense if the audience doesn't know about it. You can interpret it differently. That's fine. But the way my evidence has nothing to do with consensus.
Your assumption there is a secular one.
You're asking Matt, you're asking me my thoughts, and I'm giving you the evidence that convinces me, which seems to be what you called to ask about. The evidence that convinces me has nothing to do with consensus. When I read Mark, it's clear to me that Mark's audience had to know about the fall of the temple, and the fall of the temple happened after Paul died. Therefore, I can confidently say that Paul's writings were before the Gospels. That is not a contentious claim, and you are doing full court press on some weirdness that I don't understand why you need to be contentious about these things that are very basic. I'm unmuting you.
When you say they're basic and that you have a strong feeling that Mark was written first, everything, could I not just as easily say, oh, well, actually, I have the feeling I'm inspired by the Holy Spirit, I know you're wrong, etc.
Of course you can. But you called to ask how we can deny it. And I am laying out the reasons why I deny it. And
Well,
I'm not appealing to consensus, but a lot of people agree with me, so it's not weird.
your reasons for denying it seem to be relying on questioning when the Gospels were written, all this, but the main point of my argument is actually not even about the Gospels themselves. It's about the fact that
I was trying also not to talk
early
about the
Christianity
Gospels.
appeared out
I
of
was trying to
nowhere.
say, who do you think? You told me that the people were dying for this belief, and I asked
Yeah.
you their names and how you know they died for this. The Gospels don't help us with that information at all. So who were preaching, and how do we
Well,
know?
the narrative
And
of
how do we know?
The narrative of Acts obviously records, like, for example, Stephen was stoned, and then it's generally thought, obviously we know from historical accounts, that Nero was persecuting Christians early on. So we know that it was
What were the names of
happening.
the names of the eyewitnesses who were out preaching? And without referring to the Gospels or the New Testament, do you have any evidence outside of the New Testament about those people preaching and dying?
I don't understand why I think this is some kind of gotcha. Like, if I can't name the exact names, that invalidates everything. The general point is, this religion came out of nowhere in the first century. We know this is the case because obviously it exists today, and we can trace back all the history of it.
Yeah.
So why did that come into existence? And then
because I think it's because Peter alone had a vision that that Jesus was risen and that people believed him, which is how all Christians after the disciples came to believe. They believed based on testimony. So the fact that it was one person instead of 12 people makes no difference in terms of the plausibility.
Right. So you think one man?
So one mistaken person. Yes, that's what I think.
And that led to the creation of the Roman Catholic Church, and then also in totally different regions, the Orthodox Church.
You're saying this with you're saying this with a lot of credulity, but your credulity doesn't. Your credulity doesn't. We already established that the spread of it has nothing to do with the truth of the original claim. So appealing to the Catholic Church makes no difference whatsoever to how it started.
Right, but do you understand that your version of how it started is purely guesswork? You're saying, oh, well, Peter probably just hallucinated this thing and it'll spiral out from there, but that's
no, it's not guesswork.
That's already a secular assumption baked.
I'm sorry. I just want to step in here because it's not guesswork. It's just literally reading the only textual evidence that we have. In Paul's work, Paul identifies Peter as the first person to start receiving these hallucinations. And then there are subsequent people that also receive hallucinations to culminate, at least in Paul's view, with Paul being one untimely born, meaning that I think that's probably a reference to him persecuting Christians and then being having the revealed Jesus, giving him a hallucination or a revelation or whatnot that convinced him to start preaching for Jesus. But that's the only evidence that we have about the start of Christianity is that Peter was the first one. So that's just reading the information that we have. That's not a crapshoot in the dark or anything like that. And to suggest that like this just came out of nowhere is totally disregarding all of the Jewish culture and Jewish history that led up to the first century. There were several sects that were expecting a Messiah to come right around this time frame. And you even have Philo of Alexandria, who identified the Logos. The way that Philo of Alexandria describes his Logos is very similar to how Paul ends up describing Jesus. And so, like, this was not just something that popped up out of nowhere. This was something that had a long history of development within Christianity. So regardless of whether or not Jesus actually walked on the earth, it's very obvious that these early Jewish Christians developed out of Judaism and not just popped out of nowhere for no reason whatsoever. So I think that that's just a mischaracterization of what Paul is even saying here.
Am I unmuted?
Yep, now you are.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Judaism. Well, first of all, there's a couple of problems with the way you laid that out. I mean, a really obvious one is the fact that the majority of Jews at the time rejected that Jesus was the Messiah, so it's not exactly as if the area at the time culturally was so ripe for this figure they would have just latched onto it.
No,
So.
right. No, right. A majority of Jews at that time rejected the idea of Jesus as the Messiah, but that's exactly what we should expect from a small offshoot of Judaism, a new sect that is developing to
which
come up with its own.
Rapidly grew. But another point, speaking of Judaism, are you familiar with the Talmud?
The Talmud. When do you think the Talmud was written?
Well, I know that was fine. I believe that was finally formalized, completed in the Middle Ages or medieval period, something like that.
Yeah. So okay. So, but now tell us. Yeah.
The reason I'm asking this is there's a section in there. There's a section in there where it says that they believed that the animal sacrifices 40 years prior to the destruction of the Second Temple were no longer being recognized by God, which obviously just coincidentally happens to coincide with when Jesus was going around preaching. And they state this just kind of matter of factly as if this was a thing that in their tradition that they just knew had happened.
What is that supposed to... What do you mean, how do we explain that? That's something written hundreds of years later, has a correlation, and I'm supposed to, like, how could that even possibly be? You don't know about retcons, you don't know about people writing. You know that part of the Talmud has polemics against Jesus in it.
Oh yeah, I know that. Yeah, but the question I was leading to is why would they believe that or state that?
Hundreds of years after Christianity usurped their religion, why would they say that? Are you serious right now?
Hang on, what did you just say? Over what? What did you just say?
Hundreds of years after Christianity stole their thunder, why would they write something? What do you mean? Rome adopted Christianity as their official religion, and it went all over the place, and it totally usurped the importance of Judaism in the region.
What are you saying? That they were making a retroactive direct reference to Christianity?
Correct.
And condemning themselves for rejecting a Messiah that they don't recognize as the Messiah? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
That makes no sense. That's incoherent.
Well, then maybe you and I are not talking about the same thing, because it's incredibly coherent to me.
It doesn't make sense. At no point did they recognize Jesus as the Messiah. So then why would they think that the sacrifices being rejected and then the temple being destroyed was anything related to it? They don't state that was the reason in the passage. They don't really state why it happened or why they thought it happened.
But this is bewilder. This is a miraculous level of bewilderment to you that I'm just going to now grant, because I don't think we're talking about the same thing. I'm supposed to think that this is a miraculous level of bewilderment that timing corresponded. Like, there are lots of messiahs. Josephus writes about lots of potential messiah. The Egyptian, there's lots of other messiahs that came around at the time. So this is a very contentious thing in the end of Second Temple Judaism. The Dead Sea Scrolls tell us that some people were expecting not military messiahs, but other messiahs. Like, there's a lot of messiah talk happening right around this time, and I'm supposed to be
in the Dead Sea Scrolls. There is a Son of God document, among other things.
Yeah, and I'm supposed to be befuddled. But I'm supposed to I'm supposed to think that this is like a miracle that can't be explained that people who are talking about messiahs and trying to debunk other people's messiahs all over the place, that there might be some passage written hundreds of years later that I'm supposed to think is like, how do I explain that? Well, I just explain that because people were trying to debunk each other.
Yeah, and before I unmute you, Matt, we do need to move on. We have one last caller for tonight, and we've been on this call for 35 minutes. So
All right.
I'm gonna unmute you because we've been going around and around on this particular topic for a while. So we're gonna kind of close this out here, and then maybe you can call in again sometime and talk to either Paul, myself, or somebody else here at the line. Okay? So now you're unmuted. And I'll let you say something final here before we let you go.
Okay, well, the final thing I'm going to say is, first of all, in that passage it says that specifically 40 years prior to the destruction of the Second Temple, 70 AD, the 40 years before that would literally be when Yeshua was going around preaching. So that's that. But anyway, aside all this, I hope you understand that and I hope the audience can see this, that in my attempting to interrogate what your foundational basis for questioning the gospel narrative and everything is, you're starting from a secular viewpoint by default and then assuming the secularism by default and reading into it like that. It's circular. It's evidently circular. You say, oh, well, we already think we're atheists who already think that Jesus wasn't resurrected, so it must be.
I am muting you, Matt, because I can't take that for a second. I was a Christian, dedicated. I was in ministry. I was absolutely believed that Jesus rose from the dead when I looked at all of this stuff. To impugn my motive that I was an atheist is just to getting my story 1,000% wrong. I went to research all this to build my faith after I was already in the ministry. I memorized the New Testament, all that kind of stuff. So your motive impugning is just unfounded and ridiculously silly. So I don't find impugning motive is ever helpful, but you're in this place, it is just misplaced. I did not start from an atheist perspective. I started believing that Jesus rose from the dead. And sorry that you're not talking about points. You're trying to say that we have bad motive, and that I just couldn't allow. Sorry about that.
I also just want to squeeze in right here at the end while Matt's is still here that arguing that consensus doesn't count for biblical scholarship seems pretty silly to me, since most biblical scholars are ardent believers who, like Paul, were trying to reify their faith or understand their faith. So when we have like consensus on timeline of events or consensus on who wrote what, that's believers who are like amongst each other going, we all read this the same way. And so I don't really understand the problem, why that has come up as a problem the whole time.
Oh, shoot. Is he muted or not muted or what's happening right now?
I don't know.
I just hit the unmute. Mats, are you there?
Yes, I am. I'm not sure why you're saying impugning motive. I'm questioning the foundational basis.
Yeah, I was not. You said I had an atheistic basis. I 1,000,000% did not have an atheistic basis when I discovered and researched any of this.
I'm saying you have an atheistic basis now.
But that's not. But I did not. I had your basis when I started, and we need to go.
Well, hang on. What do you mean by your basis?
Hold on.
I was an atheist myself.
Cool.
Yeah. So, Mats, we are going to have to let you go. Okay. This has been great. Been appreciative of the conversation, kind of. And I hope that you'll call in the future so that maybe we can continue this, because I know that you get a lot of questions, even if I disagree with the idea that they're good questions. But I hope that you'll call in again and give somebody else hell.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me.
Yep. Thanks, Mats. We'll see you later. All right, yeah, I didn't see that call going anywhere, to be quite honest, because he literally was proposing like, hey, you're entering into this question with like you're loading it up by automatically saying, oh, this didn't happen and whatnot. But yet the only thing that he had to offer counter to that was, well, you should be going into this question loading it up on the different end. And it's like, so it's just a battle of loaded questions for him. And we're literally coming in at it from an agnostic point of view, looking for evidence to justify one position or another. And I just don't think that Matt's was going to get that.
No, he also was angry when we would talk about consensus and then wanted to appeal to consensus. It was a whole thing. Anyway, we can move on.
Yeah.
We can clear the slate.
Yes. So anyways, we've got Jeremy that's up next, and Jeremy is calling in from Natural Virgins. I don't know how you'd be an unnatural one, but hey there, Jeremy, how you doing?
Hey, that was no, I don't remember saying that, but that was funny. All right. How are you? I said determinism, so it must have just been written wrong in the auto spelling. Yeah. Hey, I wanted to start with something strong and positive. I am celebrating a week cancer-free, so that's good.
Oh, congrats!
Congrats!
I hope that goes a long time. I too am a cancer survivor, so I understand. Yeah,
I'm super happy, and congratulations to you as well. Thank you. Super happy.
Thank you.
I also want to say thank you because I have called in before and I listen to your show, and to some extent you guys have actually helped me a lot and got me away from some pretty nasty stuff. So I definitely want to say that I believe your show has a great purpose, and I believe in what you're doing, and I appreciate all your fans and supporters. You're welcome.
That's great.
No, thank you too. So I was wondering if I could have something like just a quick paragraph or something.
Do it.
Ask you a question or a quick survey. Okay. Let's jump into one. So when I think about these, as a psychologist, I actually work with a lot of difficult behavior and like the dark triad, and sometimes behavior that's a lot less difficult, like autism. I always want my family to genuinely, deeply understand how I feel about certain religious concepts. But sometimes I have a lot of trouble approaching those concepts. So I wanted to talk about how healthy it is to be able to just fully understand each other before, getting into a really difficult debate or anything, and just try to have fun, But yeah, that's the struggles that I have with these religious concepts. I feel like we should talk about these religious concepts because it might help me to, further bring myself to a better path and maybe help some other people too. But I don't want to evangelize,
So hold on. Are you calling to ask about difficult conversations with your family? Or what are you calling? Or do you want to?
I'll let you finish talking. I'm sorry.
I guess I'm just confused as to what you would like us to talk about, or were you calling to bounce the questions off of us because you find it difficult in other circumstances, or were you wanting general advice on how to have these conversations, or what are you asking?
Sure. Well, I mean, you can respond however you want to. I think that when it comes to atheism, I wonder how it's done in the home and what kind of data we should be looking at to understand whether or not it's healthy and beneficial, or if it really shuts people down or
don't care.
Well, hold on. I want to show you right now. I want to do a demonstration of me doing atheism at home real quick. Okay, here's how I do my atheism at home.
Absolutely.
I'm doing an atheism.
You're just not believing in God.
Okay,
in that chair.
I mean, some of us live with a lot of people, right? I mean,
but
some of us live with a lot of people, and they create a lot of challenges in our lives.
So,
and
Jeremy,
it's a lot more difficult when you have 3 religions in your home.
Absolutely. So just so you know, I have children. They don't believe what I believe.
Okay.
I have lots of
Okay.
family who do not believe what I believe. And so that's why I was asking if you were asking for advice, because I think a lot of times the answer is don't have those conversations with people you love. Why are you doing that?
Okay.
Because a lot of times they're contentious, and if you value the relationship more than you value being right, and this doesn't have to just apply to religious topics, it apply to lots of topics, then you set boundaries, right? Like so you absolutely should, like most healthy relationships have boundaries. There's certain things we do or don't do for the comfort of each other, or certain things we talk about or don't talk about for the comfort of each other. Or if you're going to have those conversations, you set some ground rules in advance of how we're going to talk about those things, right? But so in my family, I value some relationships with Christians more than I value whether I'm right. So we have, in some cases, we just agree to not talk about that and we talk about the million other topics that we could talk about. So, I mean, that is not, I'm not saying that's what,
That's good.
that is, yeah. So you don't
That's a
need
great skill. I think it's a great skill.
But for some people, I get why the authenticity of themselves. So for some people, the relationship isn't as important as being authentic. And in which case, there's a whole different set of advice. So that's why I was asking those initial
really
probing
scary.
questions of like, where are you at?
Thank you. Yeah, I know. I mean, because religion can be a very slippery slope, and it can be pushed into your life without your consent. And those are definitely the most difficult times, because someone might be trying to convince you to do something that you feel is unconscionable and basing it on religion. And I feel like if you're in a family and building a construct for how to behave, you want it to be you want everyone to feel like it's a moral pathway. And I think atheists do a really good job at that, honestly, if I'm being honest, but not everybody does. And dealing with it is a question that maybe a lot of like younger atheists might have. And I think you say they go to like secular humanism, because you have to understand when someone's mistreating you, right? And you might just start with an idea that it's like some kind of deity, but if you really look, it's either human behavior or it's not human behavior that's causing you dilemmas, right? And at first, you at least need to acknowledge to yourself, like, I'm not crazy, something bad is happening, or I'm having a really good time, and I love this, and I know how to be happy, and this is it, and I want to be here. So I'm curious how you would respond to that.
Well, I should let John jump in here, but it's all human behavior, right? Even if God is the reason why people do things, it's still human. It's still all human behavior. So you don't have to make that arbitrary division. And then I will let John jump in with whatever he might like to add.
Okay, I'll get the transition.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that religion can inform like actions, and maybe I don't fully understand like the question that you're asking here, but I feel like even though religion can inform like decisions and everything like that, like there's, like Paul was saying, there's definite ways that you can like address that and that can still maintain those relationships. Like, I have family that is religious still, and we, like Paul said, set ground rules for how we were to communicate about those certain things and what things we weren't going to talk about. And so, like, if you value your family and you have to live with your family and all that kind of stuff, like setting those kind of ground rules is going to be pretty much the most important thing, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to have those kind of conversations without them like totally disconnecting from you. And so I generally choose not to talk about religion with my family just because I can be very abrasive, and they also don't want to hear what I really think about their faith. And so like it's just something that we kind of agree to. So I don't know. Maybe I'm misunderstanding like the question that you're asking.
Okay. Let me ask another. then I could ask one for you. I think I have a good follow-up to that. If if someone says like empiricism, for example, is like a religious topic, then they might say, hey, you're attacking me, you're making me talk about religion. But that's one of those things where, like determinism, like you don't want someone driving down an invisible road that they hallucinated in your mind. And most things are like that. Like jail's like that. You might want to dream your way out of jail, but if you're in jail, you're in jail. And you're going to suffer the time. You know, like you can't religion your way out of certain things.
No. But I'm not really following what the issue is here. Like you're saying that you have family members. Okay.
Go ahead. Well, I mean, children is a really good example because a lot of religious people, they go straight to children and what's being taught in schools and stuff. And to me, like, there are certain things that are very religion adjacent that I need to discuss with somebody at an institution before I sign my child up to learn there. Right?
Cool. But Jeremy, the advice that we were giving has nothing to do with whether religion. I was actually going to almost say the same thing can be said of sports teams. The same thing can be said of politics. The same. It doesn't matter what your favorite soda is. If you have relationships with humans and these are relationships you value, it doesn't matter what the topic is, whether it's religion or whether you think it's religion adjacent. Doesn't matter. You need to negotiate how you're going to talk to each other. If you just want to, because it sounds like what you want to say is, if someone's believing something false, I got to tell them that they're believing something false. Then you're falling into the category that I was talking about, is that's a relationship where you value the truth more than the relationship. And that is fine. That's fully acceptable. But when you value the truth more than the relationship, then it's a different dynamic.
Okay, well, I can't really stay on the phone too much longer. I can give one more if you want me to.
No, no, I don't need more.
I can to the next caller.
Jeremy, all I wanted to do is, I wanted to clarify when I was shouting "I don't care" before. You asked why is atheism valuable? And I don't care whether it is valuable or not. What I care about is the truth of a proposition. So I just wanted to clarify why I was yelling like a maniac.
You should get respect, and I wish you got more. Okay, thank you. You have a good day.
Later. Night, Jeremy.
All right, bye.
All right. Bye.
That was all right.
That was quick.
He yoinked himself, so that's fine. I mean, he may have had something very important to do. That's all cool.
Yeah, but that's all for our calls tonight. Yeah, that's all for our calls tonight. Paul, I love hosting with you again. It's been far too long since we've hosted together.
I'm excited.
I can't wait till the next time.
We have super chats, right? Maybe.
Oh yes, we do. Totally forgot.
That's what I thought. I was like, before you wrap up, sir, like we got some business.
Yeah. Okay. So we got £5 from. Oh, I'll go ahead and go. £5 from Mystic Mind Analysis, who says, "I follow the 12th Doctor's code of morality: never be cruel, never be cowardly. Remember, always try to be nice. Never fail to be kind." I mean, yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that.
$5 from God's Sinner. I like the idea of the god of smex and gender. As long as you have tried to explore your smexual and or gender identity, you go to heaven. From Kara. That actually, see, that's no less arbitrary than like it's based on morality or based on whatever else. Yeah, it's like if you got your sexual orientation figured out, awesome, cool, love it.
$5 from Space Barbarian 3484, who says, "From another godless engineer in Alabama, here's $5. A sufficiently ignorant person can't tell the difference between magic and technology." Yeah, and I mean, I feel like that's kind of what we were trying to get across there to that one John caller, is that, you can actually distinguish between advanced technology and magic, and he seemed to be making that point for us, but not realizing that he was making that point.
Yeah, I loved that. That was fun. The rare self-own, as they say. $20. Thank you so much, Benny Blaze. Appreciate that. Here is a donation to never take a call from that man again. Unfortunately, we don't know which one you were talking about. He was making us all less intelligent. So now we'll have to reverse engineer this to figure out which call that was during.
Whenever you were talking
Thanks,
about
Benny.
testimony, apparently.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Oh, so it's probably that first John.
Yeah.
10 pounds from the Fuzzy Logic, who says, we don't have to accept testimony that men walked on the moon. We have the rocks they brought back and can literally see the bags of literal shit they left there using telescopes and uncrewed probes. Yeah, and also lasers. We can bounce lasers off of the moon, and we can through physics we can calculate how far it takes to get back. So the fact that there are reflective plates on the moon that will reflect it back is evidence that we were there.
Yeah, he picked a weird thing to use as his example for sure.
Yeah.
All right. $20 from Arcane Goat 2024. Caller John convinced me that Jesus is the moon and made of cheese. Yeah. That's how he can walk on water, because cheese floats.
Yep.
$5
from Space Barbarian 3484, who says some of the hosts have provided more evidence for dog than any caller to these shows has shown for gods. I mean, I believe Paul's got a very physical evidence of a dog.
There's a dog. I can touch my dog right from where I am. You just can't see her. Yep. $5 from Aliashana Silverbow. What's a stormtrooper's favorite store? Anything next to Target. What was Tarkin's favorite brand of toilet paper? Charmin to the last. Those are great. Those are great Star Wars jokes, which I have not heard either of them, so that's very good.
$5 from Alashana Silverbow says, why didn't any of Luke Skywalker's marriages last? He always followed Obi-Wan's advice. Use divorce, Luke. Hashtag Team Coffee Table. People are still on you about the coffee table, huh?
They ruined that goodwill they'd bought with the good Star Wars jokes with the bad hashtag. Another $5 from Eliashana Silverbow. What did Darth Vader say when he walked into a vegetarian restaurant? I find your lack of steak disturbing. Very good. Very good. I like how in that movie, basically, they're at a big meeting of the Empire, and a discussion about religion just bursts out in the middle of the meeting. Anyway.
$5 from JamNick06. What did Darth Vader get for the dessert at the Italian restaurant? Get for dessert, sorry. Dessert at the Italian restaurant. In Vader's voice. Only one cannoli. Alashana started this.
And to be pedantic, he did spell it desert, so you're fine. I understand the super chat limits. But yeah, you're good. We're on to lots of Star Wars jokes. Awesome. $5 from Gemnico6. On a cold day, Luke Skywalker prefers to drink a nice cup of hot chocolate. It's better than inside a Tauntaun.
Yeah, honestly, I'm a little afraid one time whenever the government opens back up, I'm going to get in back at my place, and there's going to be somebody that uncomfortably talks about religion. And I'm just going to, it's going to be a struggle for me not to put them in their place or something like that. $5 from Alashana Silverbow, who says, I saw a falcon eating avocado toast. I guess it's a millennial falcon. How did Darth Vader cheat at poker? He kept altering the deal. Pray not that I don't alter it further.
Well done. $5 from God Sinner. I wish I could give more for GE's trip, but I need to get more zerbas in my life. Pardon me, zerbas.
Yeah, really, I do not give for the trip, because it really depends on whether or not the orange asshole can pull the 2x4 out of his ass. £5 from Barbara Barrett J8F, who says the Mandalorian invented the muscle car, invented the Euro Lemon, proved things don't go better with Coke. I'm out of the loop on that one. I'm sorry, I don't get it.
Me neither. Moving
We
on.
appreciate the super chat. $5 from Jamnico6. The two most popular desserts on Kashyyyk are Wookiees and cream and Chubaklava. Nice. And also, well done for spelling Kashyyyk correctly. I appreciate that very much.
$5 from Jamnico6, who says neither C3PO nor R2D2 got any dessert because BB-8 ate it all.
Although, you know, from Style Guide, you spelled Kashyyyk right, but you didn't get R2D2. You put in the dash in R2D2, so I don't know what to believe anymore. £5 from the Fuzzy Logic. Paul literally couldn't stop himself from apologizing in the middle of flaming Mats for accusing him of bad faith. That's Canadian as fuck. Elbows up. Yeah, I can't stop being Canadian.
You got to work more A's into it, though. Like at the end of it,
No, we don't.
That's what
We don't actually say that. Anyway,
not if you speak to Neil, the 604 atheist, he does the A.
You got to keep it subtle, you know. Every once in a while, you hit a really hard sorry, and you're locked back in.
Oh yes, I did work really hard on my when I lived in. I did live in America, and I worked very hard to get rid of my accent. So, yeah, maybe I'm not the best example. This is when you,
20,
me, you.
Yeah, me. $20 from Benny Blaze, who says, "Here's another donation to never take a call from Mr. British, his alter ego, and this guy, Mats."
Wow, that's you know you did poorly when people are donating money for you to not be talking. £5 from the Fuzzy Logic. Here's another $5 for Lux, settling into the voice of God role nicely. What's the first line of the Book of Luxander?
So my answer to the question of superpowers is consistently, I have some preferences, but do not give me superpowers. And I feel very similarly now that I'm contemplating the idea of having a holy book. Don't give me this power. Don't do it. Don't do it.
You'll abstain. All right.
£5 from the Fuzzy Logic, who says, "I mentioned the human feces because that's evidence of humans being there rather than an uncrewed rover that could have placed the corner reflectors." Oh, I mean, that's good.
Okay, so on the moon, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, human shit on the moon is definitely pretty good evidence there. Like, how else did human shit get there?
Shot it in a rocket. Got the shit rocket to plant the evidence. Yep.
All right. Well, that's going to be it for the show tonight. I appreciate everybody contributing via super chats, as well as every caller, even if it was very painful to get through them. Definitely appreciate everybody. Thank you, Alexander, for producing and being the voice of God tonight, as well as the call screeners and all the moderators in the chat there. I believe Stephanie was doing the call screening, so thank you so much to her. Yep. And
appreciate everyone.
I guess we'll
Patreon.com/call the line. Thank you, everybody.
Be kind.